Jets fans still can't believe how good the Jets offense looked with Mike White at QB in Week 12. New York Post sports columnist Mark Cannizzaro. He was all over the Jets coverage with a busy day at MetLife Stadium, and he joins me now. Mark, how's it going?
Doing well, Dex. I mean, it was an interesting day out here. The Jets took care of business against a team they should have beaten, and you have to be happy with that if you're a Jet fan.
Yeah, if you're a Jets fan, you got to be happy with what you saw today. Now, Mark, Jets head coach Robert Saleh, he didn't have an easy week when he had to make the decision to bench Zach Wilson. Now it looks like a good one after a 31-10 win over the Bears. So what do you make of how Saleh handled the switch under center this week?
Yeah, Dex, I wrote my column for tomorrow on how Saleh handled that whole situation. First of all, quarterbacks, that's always a delicate deal, particularly when the quarterback has insulted half the locker room, as Zach did last week after the New England game. So I thought that Robert navigated this week and pressed every correct button. And obviously, all you got to do is look at the stat sheet and then see the way Mike White played today to see that was correct. But it goes deeper than that, in my opinion. I just feel like he's a great communicator. He kept all of his players informed. I talked to a number of the veteran leaders in the room, in the locker room today after the game, and all of them were praising Saleh about how he handled what can be a stressful week, and was a stressful week, and kind of allowed the players to just focus on the game plan, rather than all of the exterior noise about the quarterback change and, was the locker room lost and all that kind of stuff. So I think this was a tough week for him to navigate, and I thought he did it with absolute aplomb.
Yeah, he did a great job there, and it looked well with how Mike White looked on Sunday. Now, the Jets offense, particularly the wide receivers, Mark, they looked rejuvenated against the Bears. Are we now able to see the true potential of some of the wideouts like Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore with Mike White as the starter?
Well, I think that Mike White sees the field better than Zach Wilson does. I mean, he completed passes to 10 different players today, which is pretty remarkable. And I feel like I got a feel in the locker room on Wednesday when I was there last week that there was an anticipation amongst the players about how Mike White was going to perform. I think players like Elijah Moore, who had been really not a part of the offense at all this season, had an anticipation that maybe he might get a little bit more involved, and he did. Obviously, he had two catches, a big 42-yard catch and run, and a 22-yard touchdown pass that he caught that put the game away. Garrett Wilson hadn't scored a touchdown since week 2 in that crazy Cleveland comeback, and he scored 2 today. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not a coincidence that the quarterback change, led to this kind of production on the field. So, and again, I'm not trying to stamp on Zach Wilson and beat him up post benching, so to speak, but it's just the reality of the situation that you saw out here today. Now, they'll go to Minnesota next week in a difficult place to play against a better team than the Bears, were today. And, we'll have a better feeling for, how good Mike White can be and is.
We will see what happens next week. And I want to talk about another part of the offense, Mark, lastly, because I think many people thought the Jets were going to run the ball heavily in this game with Michael Carter. Obviously, he gets hurt and doesn't get most of the carries in the backfield in Week 12. However, Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson, they showed they could do some things, not only running the ball, but catching the ball. Are these guys intriguing weapons for the gangrene offense as they move forward?
You know what they are, Dex? They're great parts to this Mike LaFleur's system. He comes from the San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan system where you got a lot of moving parts at running back, guys coming in and out all the time, staying fresh, a lot of movement. And you saw that today. You saw more action for Knight. Obviously, he was making his NFL debut because Michael Carter went down. But interestingly, the Jets kept James Robinson, who they just traded for after Breece Hall was hurt in last month. He was a healthy scratch today, and they gave Knight his chance. And Knight was all over it. He's 69 yards. He looked fantastic out there. Ty Johnson, we've seen in spots, and we could tell he has some explosiveness to him. So yeah, I mean these guys are all just kind of moving parts, and they're all positive parts. To this offensive system that LaFleur runs.
Absolutely. Now, look, Jets, they have a tough test next week in Minnesota. We will see how the Mike White experience goes and continues as we move on to Week 13. That is Mark Cannizzaro, New York Post sports columnist. Mark, thank you for your time. Always good to see you.
Anytime, Dex. Thanks.